Today we're out at the range to answer some questions I'm getting from social media about the Sig P365XL. If you look on the table here in front of me, I have the P365XL, the original P365 with its pinky extension on its 10-round magazine. Next to the P365, I have the Glock 43X, and below that, the Glock 48. So people are asking, how does the new XL stack up to the Glock counterparts in terms of size and thickness and things like that? And also I've had people ask me questions, can you take the slide off the XL and put it on the 365 and vice versa? And will it work? Well, we'll talk about all that in this video. Let's get started. So let's talk about how the P365XL is different from the original P365, and let's delve into the Glock 43X and the Glock 48. Now the XL fixes a number of problems that I had with the original P365, and one of the biggest problems I had with the P365 was the fact that it drags its striker on primers and smears that primer right to the very edge of the brass case. And people within Sig, Phil Strader, for example, have gone out on the record and said, oh, that's perfectly normal, don't worry about it. Meanwhile, it's snapping strikers left, right, and sideways. And they can deny that, but there's a slight problem. If you take a look at the picture I'm about to show you, I'm showing you 3 different generations of strikers, and that's just the strikers that I have in my possession from the 5 guns that I've purchased since the P365 came onto the market. They're making drastic changes to the striker. They're increasing the spring weight, they're definitely changing the profile of the striker, giving a radius to it, and making it more robust so it can resist those lateral forces of it being dragged across the face of the primer. But they solve those problems with the XL. The XL is not just bigger, but it has an ergonomic change as well. But let's take a look at the slide. You'll notice that the slide and barrel are slightly longer on the XL. That extra length adds about an ounce to the slide. And that changes the dwell time, how long the gun stays closed before it opens up and how fast that slide moves rearward. They've increased the spring weight from what I can see. The spring looks different than previous generations of strikers. And so the spring weight looks like it's been increased. The tip has been increased in terms of hardness, and you can see the discoloration around the tip that indicates a different surface treatment, probably to harden that tip against dragging. But the neat part is there is no striker drag with the XL, and it's not just me. I've read other reports online of XL owners, and they're not having the strikers drag on the primers at all. That's completely solved. So, by increasing the weight, the mass of the slide, by increasing the spring rate, and they changed the recoil spring on this as well, which we'll show you when we take the guns apart. No longer do we have nested recoil springs. We have one long steel rod with a single recoil spring. It makes the gun shoot softer. It slows down that slide, so now we're not seeing any type of striker drag on the primer, and the gun just generally handles and shoots better than the earlier P365. The P365 is a neat gun because it's so stinking small and light, but with that comes the engineering problems of making it reliable so it doesn't break things like strikers. Completely, apparently, resolved with the XL. Let's take a look at some of the other changes between the XL and the P365. If you take a look at the back strap on the XL, you'll notice right here we have a more pronounced dovetail. The grip comes down, it's longer, it holds 12 rounds natively without an extended magazine, and then the base of it is flared out for magazine insertion, making it easier, but also changes the feel of the grip. It makes the grip feel a little bit wider, but it really isn't. You'll also notice that the XL has the flat face trigger on it, and it doesn't really, I can't say it improves the trigger. Noticeably, it still has that spongy P365 feel, but it has a clean break, no over travel, and it's totally serviceable. It's a decent trigger, and I like it better in terms of feel than the curved trigger of the original P365. So you have a longer sight radius, you have improved ergonomics, you have no more striker drag on the primer, and really, if you take a look at the gun, the cost and size is minimal. The extra barrel length is not something you have to worry about from a concealability standpoint. And if you're running the pinky extension on there, you'll notice the overall length is really no different. And I run that pinky extension because that gets my hand on the gun, otherwise my pinky dangles off. So when I was carrying the P365, that's the magazine I used. So really, people are saying, oh, it's bigger, it's clunkier, and it defeats the purpose of the P365. No, it doesn't. In my opinion, this is an evolutionary change. This is a whole new handgun, and it's definitely improved. Now, other people on the internet have been reporting problems, like Harry's Holsters has said that they've had problems with their gun going into battery while firing. I've not experienced those problems. I got lucky, and this one has not given me any problems whatsoever. About the only thing I can say is something I posted on Instagram, or maybe it was a blog post to my Patreons, but while manually unloading the magazine, the follower got stuck and binds up in there every once in a while. I've cleaned it and lubricated it. I've never had it happen while firing the gun, but while manually unloading it, while I'm at the range shooting it, I take my carry ammo out and put range ammo in. I've had it bind up. Last 5 rounds will just fall out of the magazine. The follower stays stuck about midway in the magazine. Again, it's never happened while firing, only while manually unloading the magazine. Today we're shooting 124 grain Syntech ammunition from our friends over at Federal. They do send us the ammunition for free here at the channel, and it keeps us up and running. And yeah, I'm very grateful for the fact that they help us out here by sending ammunition for us to use. Been shooting Federal since I was a kid. I chased them, they didn't chase me. All right, guys, so you may have a hard time believing this, but I am actually carrying the P365XL. I'm doing so in an A&R design holster. And the reason I'm carrying it is because, one, I've been in love with the design concept of the P365 since it was introduced. I'm definitely more drawn to the XL, and I want to bring it to the range with me every time I go shooting, which is quite frequently, so I continue to shoot it, put more rounds through it so I can quickly get to 1,000, 2,000 rounds and let you guys know if I have any problems with it. But honestly, I have a good feeling this time. The gun is not exhibiting any of the problems I've had with my previous P365s, and overall, the gun shoots even better than the P365. So the gun sits in my hand more true. The P365 has a tendency to set slightly left in my hand. With a slightly larger grip that accommodates my large mitts much better, the gun sets naturally pointing true in my hand, and I don't have a tendency to shoot it left. That's something I had to compensate for with the P365. Also, this handgun really does shoot more like a larger handgun, like this Archon Type B, which is about a Glock 19 sized handgun. So people are saying, well, how does it stack up to a Glock 19? With that longer slide and the bigger grip, it's really a Glock 19 sized handgun. No, it's not. It's still a very small concealable handgun. The length, as I already demonstrated, is no longer than the P365 with its pinky extension, and that's the concealable part, and that's something I would normally carry. And the slightly longer slide gives you the added reliability, in my humble opinion, of not having that striker drag coupled with the heavier spring, the heavier slide. It's more reliable. It's less likely to break the tip of its striker because it's no longer dragging it. The gun shoots extremely flat. I love the coarse sight picture of the handgun. It's a very defensive style sight. As you'll notice, the gun shoots incredibly flat. It truly feels like a larger handgun. I'm madly in love with it, and I want this thing to work. The only thing it's lacking is it completely ignores southpaws. If you're left-handed, you have no slide, stop, slide release on the other side of the handgun. I find that a bit odd. You would think Sig would have rectified that when they went to the XL. They made so many other changes. Why not make a gun that's friendly to the left-handed shooters out there? The one thing I can ding it for. That's the only thing I can ding it for right now. So how does the P365 and the XL stack up to the Glock counterparts clearly brought to market to compete against Sig in their new entry to the concealed carry market? Let's go ahead and get one pistol off the table here really quick, and we'll talk about the P365 first. Now again, I have the pinky extension on the magazine. So this handgun is more comparable to the Glock 43X. It has that short slide. I'm gonna try to line these up side by side, and Jason should be able to see from a downward angle, the rear is pretty much lined up going by the dovetails or the beaver tails on the rear. The 43X is just slightly longer, but if you take a look at the height difference, it's substantial. Keep in mind, this holds 10 rounds. Whoops. The P365 holds 10 rounds, and the Glock also holds 10 rounds. So there's a tremendous size difference between the Glock 43X and the P365. And most of that difference is right here in the grip. Again, this is the part that you're concerned with when you're trying to conceal a handgun. This is the part that will print. The barrel can be longer. That's going to be inside your pants if you're carrying inside the waistband like I do. If you carry outside the waistband, it does become an issue with the overall length of the cover garment, but typically you're more worried about the pistol grip. The 43X and the 48 have a much longer grip. So, how does it stack up to the Glock 48? Well, it's definitely smaller than the Glock 48. Now I have the beaver tails lined up again, considerably longer in the front end. And here you can see we have the exact same height difference. Okay? The grips are the same length. Both the 43X and the 48 use the same magazine. So let's get this little guy out of the mix. And yes, this P365 does fit in my XL holster. So now, I'll just go ahead and make sure she's clear. Now let's put the 48 next to the XL. Okay? So you can see that the XL is slightly longer. And a lot of that's in the base plate of the magazine. But the base plate on the XL sets flush and is covered by the grip. You can see that the 48 is slightly longer. So the XL is still smaller, still more ergonomic in my opinion, but that's a personal preference. The Glock has a larger, fatter, longer grip. This one just feels better to me. Now I will say that my 48 has a really nice trigger, and when it comes to comparing this grip to something like a Glock 19, I actually prefer this grip. This feels better to me. So it's more narrow than a Glock 19, but honestly guys, this is a single stack Glock 19. This holds more ammunition, is smaller, more concealable, and in my opinion, more ergonomic. Personal preference. My Instagram followers have been asking me the same question over and over again, so I want to answer it in this video. Can you swap the slides and barrels out between the two different guns? The answer is yes, I'm sure you can. I've done it, but I haven't fired it. We're going to fire it this afternoon. But why in the world would I take something I know is flawed in my opinion, the striker drag, and put that flawed upper onto the larger lower? Doesn't make sense to me. Why would I take a problem I'm trying to get rid of and put it back onto my carry gun? The XL solves the striker drag problem, so that's one of the major reasons I'm so drawn to it. But let's go ahead and strip the guns and do the swap and fire it. All right, so I'm gonna drop the magazine out, weapon's clear. I'm gonna lock the slide to the rear, rotate the disassembly lever down, and they just pull apart. You don't have to pull the trigger to disassemble the XL or the standard P365. Now here you're gonna notice a big change, guys. That is a single steel guide rod and recoil spring. Done away with the nested recoil springs. All right, so let's go ahead and put that back together because we're just going to do an upper swap here. Drop the magazine out of the P365. Disassembly is exactly the same. Pull them apart and see that recoil spring? Completely different. All right, so let's go ahead and put this on the XL. Kind of an interesting look, I'll give you that. And let's take the XL slide and stick that onto the P365. Yeah, that's something I would expect from Glock. They do weird things like that. That's awkward. All right, so I will give it. That looks cool. I'll give you that. That does look very cool, but I like the longer slide. Oh, magazine's out of it. Let's go ahead and load. You will notice the magazines are different, so you can't take the P365 magazine and expect it to work in the XL. However, you can take the XL magazine and expect it to work in the P365. The only difference being it's slightly longer, okay? We'll just take a couple of rounds, this Federal 124 grain Syntec. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, and quickly confirm function with the P365 slide on the XL frame. So by doing that, I've increased the recoil impulse. This gun definitely has a more abrupt cycling motion, so it transfers more of that to my hand. So I definitely like the recoil impulse of the XL. It's far superior, and again, I'm doing away with that striker drag. Let's go ahead and load up a couple of rounds into the P365's magazine. Boy, that feels goofy. It's pretty cool. And fire off 5 rounds here. I think yeah, for whatever reason, I hit the slide stop on that one with my thumb. So you can see that you can, in fact, swap them out if you wanted to for whatever reason, and it will work. I hope you guys found this video to be useful and informative, and I hope it answers the questions that you guys had regarding the P365 and the XL and how those firearms stack up to their Glock counterparts. If you'd like to continue to see videos like this, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. There is a link down below. We're not paid by Glock, we're not paid by Sig, we're not paid by gun companies. We're viewer supported. So there is a link down below. Please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. Also, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Last but not least, swing by and check us out on Twitch, link down below. We are Twitch gamers. If you're a Patreon supporter, shoot us a note. Let us know what your PSN network handle is. We'll add you as a friend, and you can join us in a live stream. Guys, thanks for 11 years of support, and we'll talk to you soon. Yep. I'm really liking it, guys. I really, really am.